Work. And we are live. Look at us. We're actually on. We are on,
Yes,
Pete.
indeed.
How are you?
Good, good,
And
good.
for those that don't know, this is our X Files podcast. We are back. I wanted to start with the X Files theme, but that did not work out exactly how I wanted because there are. Here we are. Look at this. We got to talk over it so we don't get hit with copyright infringement because
Yes,
it's not
indeed.
copyright if there's two assholes talking over it. Now, before we came on, I was telling Pete that there's like lyrics to this song, and now that I remember, I have heard it sung. I have heard it sung because there was a this it was last year, I forgot when, maybe October or so. The whole cast of the X Files got together and they did like a Zoom sing along of the X Files theme. So there's a whole
Oh,
melody to
wow.
it. So we should learn it, Pete, and when we can sing stanzas. But
Okay. It's not a very lyrical type of song, though. It doesn't really lend itself to lyrics.
yeah, but it does definitely have lyrics. Something life is a mystery, going around looking for ghosts. We are something. It's something like this. But I don't think it's these lyrics that I have here. I'll show them on the screen real quick for anybody that wants to see us. By the way, this is Phil, and Pete is my trusty co-host. We are usually on Mondays talking about what we've watched during the week, but Pete had mentioned because Pete loves to do these retro rewatches of shows. He was watching Dallas and then Beverly Hills 90210. So I figured he was going to go for another soap. And then he was like, yeah, I think I'm going to watch The X Files again. And I was like, oh shit, I might join you on that one because I did a rewatch about 6 years back, but I wasn't that hip to the whole YouTubing thing. And I wish I had done it then, a whole kind of retro review as I watched. But I was like, yeah, I'll watch that shit again. I love the X Files. So I'm rewatching with him. Here we go. The X Files lyrics. The sun is back again. The day is here. I don't know if that fits. Try to recall, try to remember
The sun
what
is
night.
back again.
Yeah, I don't know. What night brought upon me this time. There it is. I've seen it before. Recognize the shape. I'm scared but not sore. Recognize the shape. I recognize the shape. I've been marked by a triangle. Scream for answers. I don't know, man. This doesn't seem like the X Files theme with the lyrics that I heard sung. This is all about being marked by a triangle. I try to find a reason, but here I am, a hollow soul. Here I am. I've been marked by the triangle. It's getting harder to breathe. Please go away. You've already taken my dignity. I don't know. I don't know. The one that I know is the X Files theme with lyrics. Somebody actually made like a cool little video, and it's this one right here. I'll see if I can share that real quick. Life is a mystery. It's kind of cheesy, but
Yeah.
we'll try to figure out what how to sing the theme song of the X Files, and then we'll do a horrible rendition for you. Do not worry. But if anybody goes on YouTube, just put the X Files theme song with lyrics. Um, but then there's one with the whole cast, which is really nice. Uh, and I'm not sure exactly why this song has lyrics. It might be just for copyrights. Oh yeah, see, like the X Files stars reunite and add lyrics to series theme. So that was something that happened earlier this year. if you have not seen it, I'm sure you have if you are a fan of um, the X Files. So the X Files stars reunite to add new lyrics to series theme song. So the Duchovny, Anderson, Carter, Gilligan, and dozen more cast and crew sing together virtually to benefit World Central Kitchen. So you should all check that video out. And deep conspiracies, unsolved mysteries, spooky UFOs, files that have been closed. uh, Fighting out there. The truth is still out there. The song's new lyrics were penned by X Files fan Jennifer Large and Rebecca McDonald, but there are definitely original lyrics to the song. So check that out. Anyway, guys, tonight we will be talking about episodes 7 through 12. Thank you for those that watched last week. Episodes. I definitely let me mute myself. We want to thank everybody that watched last week and
Yes, indeed.
Gave us a like, subscribe to the channel. That's always cool. And there's Mulder and Scully. Oh, we got a viewer. Hello out there. How are you? And um, Pete.
Yes.
What's your general view of these next batch of episodes? Because I wanted to call this episode the duds episode. There's definitely a few duds. There's a few greats in there, but more duds than greats in this next batch for me.
Yeah, it was about 50-50 for me. There was one I really didn't like, but there's also one that I thought was probably close to the top 5. And yeah, most of the rest are somewhere in the middle, but mostly pretty cool. There was just one that I remember really not liking.
Yes. No, one of them we're going to be talking about is probably one of my favorite episodes of season 1, if not the series as a whole. But we're going to get to some hard stuff. Although I got through them a lot faster than I did the first time around. That I do recall, because I remember when I first watched it, did the rewatch, and I was like, oh my God, is this boring or is this boring? So guys, let's get to it so we don't waste too much time here. And we start the new batch with Ghost in the Machine. I'm going to ask Pete to talk about it. But before we do, just a little bit of background on this episode. It premiered on October 29th, 1993. So it's episode 7. It had a 9.5 million viewers, written by Alex Gansa and Howard Gordon, who have written a lot for the X-Files. And it's got a 6.8 rating on IMDb. And basically it's these... the agents must survive in a building that is controlled by a murderous computer. It's kind of 2001 light-ish, this episode. But go ahead. What are your thoughts on this, Pete?
Yeah, I kind of liked it. It was a little different in that it was definitely a Monster of the Week episode, but I think this is the first time they brought back Deep Throat since episode 1. So it kind of involved him in a story that was outside like the main overlapping story. But yeah, basically the story is about an office building that has this really high-tech operating system, and it develops its own intelligence, and they're going to shut down. So out of self-preservation, the operating system starts snuffing people who work at the company. And there's, in the second half of the episode, there's a subplot where the Department of Defense wants to acquire this artificial intelligence for, of course, nefarious, sinister purposes. But I liked it. It had some cool kills. I think the operating system actually only kills like 2 people, but it's menacing. It's very implausible. Apparently, the writers were not very tech savvy, and they were just kind of like making shit up on the fly. But that's cool because I mean, in 1993, most of us weren't very tech savvy, so we could just kind of roll with that. How does the AI kill people? I think at the beginning, the first kill is electrocution. He gets a guy electrocuted with his swipe card. And then there's another kill where somebody gets waxed in the elevator shaft. And Scully almost gets like sucked into a giant propeller in the ventilation shaft as well. So yeah, it's an evil little operating system. Ultimately, they wind up teaming up with the creator of the system to develop a virus that can shut it down, but the government doesn't want that to happen because they want to acquire the system for itself. So it's got all those X-Files elements in it. It's got your monster of the week. It's got kind of a wacky premise, but it's also, of course, got government conspiracy shit going on as well. So a little bit of everything.
Definitely a little bit of everything. It's kind of cool that you mentioned that about the writers were a bit disappointed with how it turned out because they were not that tech savvy. But for me, the X Files has never done a good tech episode. I know they had a few more moving ahead. They always try to touch tech and AI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I, just off the top of my head, I can't think of one that I really, really liked. There's one, but it's so far into the series where I think like Mulder gets put inside of a van or something, and there's like some virtual reality thing going on. There's that one. If I recall, I kind of dug, but I'm just gonna have to wait till I get there. But
There was that one in the reboot that had no dialogue where they were being chased by drones because they didn't tip.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and that one sort of has a feel of this one of AI kind of taking over, but way better done. I had forgotten about that. Yes, that's one of my favorites of the reboot. But it's not something I felt the writers were ever really, really good at doing the tech stuff. But I do appreciate that they tried to do this episode in 1993, and it's pretty clear. At least it was. It felt clear to me watching it that the Eurisco and its founder Brad Wilczek were a stand-ins for Apple and Steve Jobs, because I know Steve Jobs kind of got fired from his own company got fired from Apple before he came back and became the Steve Jobs we all know and love with all the iPads and iPods and everything.
I kind of thought he screamed Bill Gates to me, actually.
Really?
Yeah, just his nerdiness and the fact that his thing was operating systems.
That is true, but it kind of reminded me a little bit more of Steve Jobs because one of his look, like kind of skinny, pale white dude, living out in his house looked kind of like he was into this whole Zen thing, and these guys don't understand the creativity aspect of this. And, in the tech industry, you have the suits and you have the guys who are creative and think outside the box. It felt kind of like a Steve Jobs thing because Steve Jobs was all about the imagination of technology and where you can go with things and this and the third. So he gave me a little bit more of a Jobs feel.
Yeah, but Steve Jobs was actually a pretty good dresser, though. This guy dressed like shit, which is definitely more of a Bill Gates thing.
He's got the gray suit, the gray shirt thing down, but but that's his jail clothes. Sorry, I'm looking at some images here. That's his jail clothes. but could be any of these early tech guys and where they felt technology could go versus what folks, the suits kind of wanted technology to be, and so the company downsizes and they get rid of them, and then
Yeah.
the AI that he created for the building doesn't want to get shut down. So that's the mystery. Who's killing these people inside of this building? And
It's
we
not
soon
a
find out.
mystery to the viewer, though. It's a viewer. It's a mystery to
Yeah,
Mulder and Scully. I think we
yeah,
know from the beginning that it's the AI.
yeah. That's right in the teaser. That's right in the teaser,
Yeah.
and it was a pretty
Yeah.
good teaser at the beginning. I like the teaser. Um, and then and exactly what Pete said. Well, the cool part of it is how they kind of shoehorn in Deep Throat a little bit, and he explains how this COS, Central Operating System, is of interest to the government, the Department of Defense, and they're trying to acquire it. So there's this whole uh, backdrop of that, which kind of lifts the episode a little bit higher for me because that part was kind of interesting. And it's cool how they can add the government element without it being directly tied to mythology. It's like, yeah, the government's hands are everywhere, and
Yeah.
they are into this stuff. Now,
I kind of felt bad for Wilczek at the end too. The poor bastard. He basically he takes the heat for the murders. And as Deep Throat says to Mulder, you destroyed the only evidence that could have exonerated him. So he's pretty much fucked. But at the end, we find out that he's not actually in jail. They're just forcing him to design another system.
yep, it's what does he say? It's amazing um what somebody will do when they're facing, however many years. It's good to mention this guy Jerry LaManna, which is the FBI agent and former partner to Fox Mulder. He's the one that calls him in on the case because he's having a hard time, and it's this running theme of asshole FBI agents. Every once in a while,
Yeah.
it's refreshing when they have somebody that is actually on their side and actually treats Mulder with a little bit of respect, which is kind of cool. But for the most part, when we do get other agents, they are absolute jerks.
Yes.
And this guy is one of them. And he gets killed inside the elevator. He had a great death scene.
Yeah. Yeah. An interesting piece of trivia about this is that this was actually filmed in a building in Burnaby that also houses the West Coast offices of basically the equivalent of the Canadian Secret Service. So
Oh, really?
that, yeah, yeah, it's kind of an oddball location to be shooting. Mind you, it's a huge complex.
Oh, and well, you mentioned trivia, but another piece of trivia that is interesting is that whole scene at the end. One second, yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole scene at the end where Scully is in the what do you call it? The little shaft there, the air
The
conditioner
vent,
duct, whatever.
the air conditioner,
Right.
yeah, yeah, the in the ventilation shaft.
Yeah, and the ventilation shaft was not part of the original script. They were going to have this elevator scene, but it would turn out to be way too expensive, and they ended up putting her there. But I thought it was better. I mean, the elevator death scene for Jerry was nice, but I don't know how much they would have to repeat it again. But it seemed like they were foreshadowing it because at the beginning the AI isn't very friendly to Mulder and Scully when they're trying to go up to whatever floor the COS is in. But
Yeah.
I dig her in that scene in the little ventilation shaft is kind of cool. So yeah, I lost my a page of notes, guys. I'm so pissed. I don't know what I did with it, but if I recall, I gave this like a 2.5 or maybe even 3 stars. Not terrible. I know it's not ranked as one of the best of
Yeah.
season one, but it's not terrible. It's watchable. it feels a little derivative of, and it was actually written as an homage to 2001 here. I'm
Yeah.
reading. Um, um, it says, I'm reading a review here from the AV Club. He felt the similarities to 2001: A Space Odyssey and Demon Seed were effective, adding, however, that although the plot worked well, it had dated poorly. And that's the only problem. It looks dated. The
Right.
Whenever you deal with stuff with technology, it's so easy to make things look dated if you don't have the right budget or the right kind of stylistic approach to it to make it kind of timelessness, give it a timeless appeal, which you can do better with sci-fi. That's why you can still watch Star Wars and it doesn't look dated, or even 2001. But then you watch an episode like this, and you're like, oh, we're so beyond any of this technology that they're dealing with in this episode. So this is one that is okay. It's okay, but it definitely looks a little bit dated. So moving ahead, we get to one of my favorite episodes of the
Yeah,
whole
this is a
series. I
great
was
one.
so looking forward to watching this. I'm like, I know this is coming up, and it's called Ice. And this, for me, I mean, a lot of homages here felt like an homage to The Thing. So shout out to our friend Justin Bramlett, who's a huge fan of The
Yeah,
Thing.
apparently it
But
wasn't actually based on the movie The Thing. It was based on the
mhm,
direct source material, which was like a
mhm.
really old 1930s novella.
Oh,
So yeah, it
cool.
used the same source material, but didn't really draw on the actual film adaptations too much.
Oh yeah, I didn't feel it followed the movie. Although I'll tell you something. Let me see. Look, filming the similarity to Carpenter's version of The Thing was due in part to new production designer Graeme Murray, who worked on Carpenter's film and created the complex in which the
Ah,
episode took. So that's what when I think of The Thing, I feel more like visually, and like just it has a, like, it just seems like it's like a little cousin of that movie, but way better, by the way. And I was so disappointed when I watched The Thing because everybody talks so much about this movie. So I was like, let me go watch it about 3 years ago, and I didn't like it at all. I thought the most interesting character was the dog, and then when the dog died, I was like, oh no, I just kind of didn't pay attention to much of the rest of the movie. Although I always say this, as much as I didn't like the movie, I can't deny how fucking amazing it is on the special effects, the practical effects, and all. Like just the atmosphere and what they built, that little universe that they built, which clearly has influenced a lot of things, including this episode. So I still consider it a classic in that sense, but it's just not a movie that I liked at all. And you're not
yeah.
a big fan of the thing either, right? From what I
No, no,
recall.
it had some really groundbreaking special effects, but I think I saw it once when it was like a new movie and didn't think much of it, and then rewatched it probably in the maybe 10, 15 years later, and I was like, yeah, no, it still doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with that. But the plot line for this episode is in an Arctic research station, Mulder and Scully are threatened by primordial ice worms that cause their host to become dangerously paranoid and violent to each other. And this, another Monster of the Week episode, premiered on November. Oh, it doesn't have a date, it just says November 1993. I don't know why they didn't put a date here. Oh, November 5th, sorry. November 5th, 1993. And it's episode
8.
7. Is it 8? I thought it was 7.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 8 on the wiki here. Oh, because,
because of the
sorry.
pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
production number is 1 of 7, but it's episode 8 and written by our dudes, Morgan and Wong, the
Yep.
dynamic duo, and directed by David Nutter, one of the great X-Files directors. So
And
it's
yeah,
got
he's like one of the main producers as well.
Yeah, it's got an 8.9 rating on IMDb, and it's an absolute classic, and it's freaky, and it centers around just confining these folks in this little Arctic station because they have to go up there and investigate why the people working there all killed themselves, and the videos show them all happy-go-lucky at the start, and then murderous bastards by the end, and they're like, okay, what is going on? And it the tension of the episode is just who's infected, like everybody's kind of turning on each other. So it's got that alien feel to it too, where everybody's kind of stuck on this one ship. Where's the thing that's going to kill us, or who is going to kill us? Works on a whole lot of levels. Um, uh, Beyond just the scary monster, because really the scary quote unquote monster is like this little worm.
Yeah.
But it's the people drama that makes this episode work,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the cabin fever aspect of it.
It's
Who is
very,
infecting
very
people?
claustrophobic.
Extremely. But it's just well done, and it's again one of my favorite episodes. I wish I had my notes because I know I wrote so much more interesting stuff on there, guys. But eventually we'll get to the episodes that I do have a few more notes on. But definitely dug it. If you're new to the X-Files, this is one that I recommend. As you want to slip in, watch this one, and you'll get a feel for what the X-Files can do beyond aliens and government conspiracies. It's just putting a bunch of good actors together in a room and letting them go. With some good writing and directing to uh, boost them. How you feel about this one, Pete?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites of the first season, at least for sure. One thing I really liked about it, besides the claustrophobic atmosphere, is how that even like gets between Mulder and Scully. Because at first it's kind of like they're on the same page, and the team they bring up there, they're suspicious of them because they're FBI. They know something's gone on up there, and they're like, well, you're FBI, you probably know more about this than we do. And so they're already a bit distrustful of Mulder and Scully, and they're kind of united, and they're like, okay, we have to contain this situation. This is a quarantine situation. And of course, things start going south when the pilot, who actually is possessed by the worm, starts wigging out. He's like, quarantine, fuck no, I'm getting out of here. There's a storm coming. And yeah, they fuck up and they take the worm out of him, and that winds up killing him. So they're like, oops, even if we do get infected, that ain't going to work. But when they realize that Mulder has been bitten, he becomes suspect of being a parasite host. And they know there's a parasite host because somebody gets murdered. So obviously it's one of the people who's left alive. Mulder is the prime suspect, to the point where Scully pulls a gun on him and tells him, like, you're going into quarantine now, motherfucker. They have this intense moment where they have their guns on each other, and Mulder's trying to talk her down, and she's like, you might not be who you are. That's like the tagline for the show. We're not who we are.
Yes.
So yeah, that really enjoyed, to the point where you can tell everybody's losing it. If obviously they're both not infected, but one of them is, and they've reached this point where they're like holding their weapons on each other.
And it works so seamlessly because it's such a overused trope of you put a bunch of people in a room and eventually they all want to kill each other or they all suspect that one of them is the murderer. So you're all this goes back to like Agatha Christie, 12 Little Indians or something.
Right.
It's a super overused trope, but if it's done well, it works, and they did it so well. Nutter said the real great thing about Ice is that we are able to convey a strong sense of paranoia. It was also a great ensemble piece. we're dealing with the most basic emotions of each character, ranging from their anger to their ignorance and fear. It established the emotional ties these two characters have with each other, which is very important. Scaring the hell out of the audience was definitely the key to the episode. And Anderson said that it was very intense. There was a lot of fear and paranoia going on. We had some great actors to work with. And yeah, great acting in the X Files. So that's another thing that just raises the bar for this show early on, even with the episodes that weren't that great, is that they do find a bunch of really good actors, man,
They
to
do,
work
yeah.
alongside David and Jillian. So really, really cool. Definitely recommend this episode. If it I always have this one and the episode where they're out in the cabin, out in the forest, as like my two kind of similarly set up episodes. Because in that episode they also kind of have to, they're just isolated out in the middle of nowhere. In this one they're isolated in Alaska, and just what the paranoia and just the frightening aspect of isolation and not knowing what's out there or what's in there with you. So, and funnily enough, that episode, which I forgot the title, what is it called? It's let me see it. I have it here somewhere. I forgot. It's I don't know. But anyway, the two episodes deal with another theme that we have a lot in the X Files. These primordial bacteria or something, or like stuff that's been stuck under the earth, and somehow the darkness falls. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Episode 20. That's one of my favorites. Uh, what's under the earth and how messing with the earth we bring this thing up, and either becomes a disease or whatever. It's just something that we see a lot. I just watched an episode this last week too from season 2 that had a similar thing where they're out by a volcano and they're drilling down in this volcano and they unleash some weird fungus and it attacks them, and first it drives them a little nuts and then it's disgusting, like the thing pops out of their mouth. It's kind of like Alien, but it's a throat buster instead of a chest buster. So the X-Files, that's something that they've used a lot, this whole idea of like some ancient bacteria or a fungus or something.
Yeah, they do it again towards the end of the season as well.
Yeah. And also eventually the black oil kind of becomes that. If
Yeah.
you watch Fight the Future, the whole opening scene with the little boys, they fall in that chasm, and the black oil seeps into his feet. But it's just this idea of millions of years ago, planet Earth was a dangerous place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parasites and fungus that you don't want to mess with. So definitely recommend this episode called Ice. One of my favorites. But we go from something as amazing as Ice one episode to space.
Yes.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Carter has named the worst episode ever in the whole entire series.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'll double check that as you're talking about it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, well, it was definitely one of my least favorite episodes of the first season, that's for sure. I know one of the things it gets bashed for is that it just looked crappy. A big part of that was the shit they wanted to do was like impossible within their budget. And even though they use like a lot of stock NASA footage for this, apparently it's still the most expensive episode of the season. So I
It
guess like
is.
tried to do a lot of shit. Yeah, they tried to do a lot of shit, but it didn't really work. So yeah, it's got kind of a blah premise though too, which is I think the main thing that I didn't like about it. Not so much the look. Basically, it's about an astronaut who was like on a mission to I think he was on like a mission to Mars, and he gets possessed by like an alien ghost-like entity. And since then, he's been sabotaging NASA. They imply that he sabotaged the Challenger disaster, which I understand including that for shock value, but it's like, it would have been better if it was like a more recent thing. I guess actually, though, the Challenger was pretty recent at the time, so that might have something to do with it. But yeah, basically, astronaut goes into space, gets possessed by ghosts from Mars, and now he's sabotaging NASA missions. And as an extra side story, he's also Mulder's childhood hero.
Yeah, I did read this too. That it's one of the, if not the most expensive TV show, TV show episode of season
Right?
one. But it's like how? Because
No, I
it,
think they tried to shoot a lot of shit that just they couldn't afford, so they had the money on it, but it didn't look good. And they wound up using stock NASA footage instead.
yeah, because I don't get how the hell it's considered the worst episode ever. The most expensive. Here I'm reading on Vulture. They've ranked all the episodes. They put it at 178. And this episode about an astronaut possibly possessed by an extraterrestrial spirit isn't just bad, it's also boring, cheaply made, it invokes the Challenger disaster,
It
which was
did.
really
It
bad
did.
taste.
Yeah,
That was
he was responsible for sabotaging the Challenger. He's been sabotaging NASA since like 1977.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that little tidbit, and then as I'm watching, I'm like, oh my god, this episode's terrible, and then they're gonna like invoke the Challenger people and say this, and is reportedly Chris Carter's least favorite episode. So there is that going on with it.
Yeah, it was boring too. It was really devoid of much tension or drama. And this one mission that they're covering that he's sabotaging, we don't actually find out what the mission is. Like they're supposed to drop a payload. Like what's the payload? Who's it for? What's it supposed to do? Why is this mission important? There were a lot of like plot points that were just kind of glossed over.
Yeah, a lot of ideas, but nothing is solidified. And this is a Chris Carter problem. I mean, he wrote this episode, and we mentioned this a little bit last week with, at least I did, with the pilot, where it's got a lot of, I mean, it's the pilot, obviously, a much better episode, but it still has these threads that he starts and doesn't finish.
Yeah,
And at his best, the plot is interesting enough where you're just okay with it. But at his worst, it we have something like Ghost, or even there was an episode I watched that was horrible just a couple days ago from season two, which was written by him, and it was just like so many interesting ideas, and it I wish he would have just focused on one, and I think it would have worked as a really good episode. Um, I think, yeah, it's this one about this peeping tom, and they they're where these kids are being kind of abducted and sent out into the woods, and I don't know. We'll talk about it when we get there. It's like all over the fucking place. It's like three different stories at once, and they don't always connect or get resolved very well. So this is a Chris Carter issue, It's one of the reasons that a lot of people say, "Hey, man, we love you, Chris Carter, but step back and let other people, take your great idea, and you just kind of sit back and it'll all be okay." Um, but anyhow, the other thing about this episode that was kind of weird is that I think they were trying to also connect it to the face on Mars,
Yes,
like because
that was the inspiration for it, actually.
yeah, it's like the face on Mars is the ghost, or is it the ghost of an alien? What exactly? And it never really explains why it is that this alien spirit wants to sabotage these astronauts. It's just like
Right.
I don't know. Um, the yeah, the scenes at their makeshift NASA was kind of cool. I mean, they did an okay job at making us believe that they were going into NASA, but I don't know. This episode just was all over the place. Fortunately, it I gave it 1.5 stars. It's just boring. Very, 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 very boring. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. It's got the kind of an Apollo 13 feel to it. Well, before that movie came out, but it did have with them trying to help the astronauts that are up in space because
Yes.
the spirit tries to sabotage them while they're up there, but then it doesn't
Yeah.
kind of kill them. Who the fuck knows what was on Carter's mind when he wrote this episode? But hey, like we said last week, y'all, um, it's a 24 episode season. Not all of them are going to be amazing. It says, I'm reading here from the wiki page, and it says, in my opinion, this was a really bad episode. More story could have been told of the connection between the Mars face and the ghostly figure. And some of the plot just did not gel or was impossible. The ghostly figure the woman sees driving. Oh yeah, like what was that? So the alien spirit is out in space, but then it's down on Earth. Mulder and Scully somehow finding a needle in a haystack, looking for the truth in NASA's file. The Deus Ex Machina saving the astronauts. X Files rocks, and every TV show has duds. I think this is one of them. Yes, so I have to agree with
Yeah.
that user. And by the way, this episode was, yeah, like I said, written by Chris Carter, premiered on November 12th, 1993. It still got 10 million viewers, so it was when the show was really getting off the ground and folks were digging it. But let's move ahead to the next episode. So definitely that's a skip for me. Next episode, a little better, and it's Fallen Angel.
Yeah, it's not bad. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it is one of those episodes with a cool guest star. It's got Marshall Bell as the head army guy. He's been in a lot of shit, a lot of sci-fi stuff. Um, Probably best remembered for playing Kuato in Total Recall. Also had that awesome gay bondage scene in the second Nightmare on Elm Street movie. But he's been around for a while, turns up in all kinds of good stuff and like this. And yeah, he's usually pretty solid. He makes a good military guy.
Oh, I didn't know about him. Well, the guy that I liked the most this episode was Max Fennig,
Of
who
course,
was,
yes.
yes, little Max. And I'm with you. Like I watched it, and in fact, I just listened to a podcast of these guys that did a whole thing just on this episode, and I'm trying to reach out to them to possibly have them come on at the end of the season so we can kind of give a season wrap up. This episode is set in Wisconsin, and it premiered on November 19th, 1993. 8.8 rating. So I think a lot of people didn't come back after space. Somebody's always paying attention, Mr. Mulder. That's Max Fennick. And the plot basically is Mulder's informed about a government cover up of a UFO crash, but finds that a fellow UFO enthusiast is also interested in the find. So this is one of the many times that Mulder gets a lead on something and he goes out to the middle of nowhere by himself because he doesn't want to get Scully or anybody else involved or in danger. But he ends up just having to get his ass saved by Scully again. You know, similar
Yeah,
to what was the episode we saw last week? Pete,
that was the first episode after the pilot.
yeah,
Deep
Deep
Throat.
Throat with Seth Green. Yes, Deep Throat. That was the name of that episode. Yeah, so similar thing. Mulder goes out there, and what's up with these government facilities that are so easy to break into?
Yeah, well,
Mulder,
this wasn't actually a government facility though. This was a UFO crash site that they were
yes,
trying to secure. So I guess they had bigger things to worry about. They're in the middle of nowhere. They just kind of improvised, and somehow not one but two people managed to sneak into it.
yes. So Mulder gets caught.
He gets in deep shit too, man. He like pretty much almost loses his job.
Yes. He's lucky that they don't kill him off in these very first episodes, and and that's something that they allude to a lot in these early episodes. Is that Mulder is kind of famous out, within the paranormal community, so he would become a martyr. They're like, if Mulder gets killed, that's when they'll know that hey, the truth really is out there. So it's kind of weird
I
because
love the reaction. I love the reaction from Scully when she finds out that Mulder actually has fans who take him seriously. She's like, her jaw's on the floor.
oh, I put that as a note here. We're officially into the episodes where I have my notes again. Yeah, so Deep Third is back. Mulder goes rogue to investigate fallen UFO. Yeah, Kneecap. The is the
NICAP, it's
organization.
pronounced. Yeah,
NICAP. What is that? The
yeah.
National something of I forgot what it stood for.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he definitely has fan clubs. And I love a quote here, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth. But I just said that it's a decent but not great mythology episode. But
Right.
I like it because it sows the seeds of where the X Files will be able to go. I mean, obviously Deep Throat does too, but this one expands it even more, like you said, with the fans, because later we get the Lone Gunmen, which
Yeah.
become staples of the show. So it builds on this universe, this mythology universe that goes beyond just Mulder dealing with these guys in black suits. But the fact that Mulder, he writes under a pen name. We find out later, not this episode, but later with the
No,
Lone
actually, we
Gunman.
do it in this episode. Max
Oh,
knows
is it in
him
this one?
from in this episode. Max knows him from his Omni article, and Mulder's like, "I wrote that under a pseudonym," and he's like, "You think you could fool us?" And he's like, "I didn't know anybody was watching." And he's like, "Mulder, somebody's always watching." And that's when Scully's like,
Yeah.
"Holy shit!"
Oh, cool. It was this episode. Nice. Yeah. So this is cool because it does build this idea of the the X verse being a little bit bigger than just these two guys in the basement. Because you have this feeling of like, why don't they just off Mulder? I mean, they could have just gotten rid of him. Have an
Well, they
unfortunate accident,
they
but he's.
address that at the end of this episode because
Mhm.
at the end of this episode, basically like they file the report, which includes not only a UFO crash, but you can't forget the monster. There's a monster in this movie in this episode that's making mincemeat out of army guys left and right.
Yes.
And when they file their report at the end, their superiors are like, "This is bullshit," and they want to close the X-Files and fire Mulder. And Deep Throat actually vetoes it, saying that he would be more dangerous. He uses the old adage about keeping your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yes. Yeah, because this begins too. So another important thing about this episode is what Pete just mentioned. It becomes a key to getting or understanding the mythology, which is this whole idea that these alien DNA or something is being, humans are being tested with human DNA to see if they can create these super soldiers. And that's where I think it's the beginning, the teaser of this one, right? They're like chasing this guy and they're shooting him, and he's got like green blood, and he jumps in the water. Am I mixing episodes up or no?
We don't actually ever see the monster in this one, but he
I think
kills a
I'm
lot of
mixing. No,
people.
I think I'm mixing episodes up, guys.
Yeah,
I think that's either to another episode.
this one
Uh,
burns everybody. We never see the monster, but it causes like third-degree burns on its victims.
okay, okay. Oh my God, it's incredible, guys! I forgot to pay my rent this week, so that's where my brain is at the moment. So yeah, I think I'm mixing the episodes up. Oh, that's EBE, I believe,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
where it starts with that guy, and then you get a little bit of the mythology. So, but again, not a great episode, but it's got a lot of elements in it that show up later and are better done. But it
Yes,
still works. It still works. I don't
yes.
think it's a boring episode at all.
And it lays the
It,
groundwork for a lot of those later episodes, like the fact that the X Files could be closed, that Mulder could be fired, and the lone gunman. So a lot of things that came on in later episodes. Definitely, the groundwork was laid here.
exactly, exactly. So that's why I recommend it. I gave it 3 stars, but not a 3 stars leaning towards 2. 3 stars leaning towards 4, and um, making it a decent episode to check out, especially if you're following the Myth arc. By the way, on the X Files wiki page, the fandom, they have a really cool feature, which is when you click on each episode, you can, when it says like next episode, you can either go like next episode within the mythology arc or next episode within Monster of the Week, which is kind of cool. So if you want to follow it as far as the mythos, you can do it that way. But we're moving right along, guys. Oh, wait. Before we do go on, another thing I liked about Max, and the guys from that other podcast mentioned this too, which is kind of cool. Is I think this was a great episode to hook in all those UFO fanatics. I mean, Deep
Right.
Throat obviously was too, but those guys, like I had said last week, when I was 12 or 11 or so, that's when I started listening to Art Bell, late night talk show host. I don't know if he was popular in Canada at all, or if you know who he is, but in the
No.
US, he was huge. He had like 15, 20 million listeners every night. He was like the Howard Stern of late night radio. In fact, I remember I used to go to sleep listening to Art Bell because on the East Coast, his show would come on like at 1 in the morning because he would come on like at 10 or something out in Nevada. Near Area 51, he would broadcast from near Area 51. And I would usually fall asleep before his show was over. And then I would wake up to Howard Stern in the morning, like at 6 or 7. So, and this episode here, it feels like it was written for that audience, those guys that had their CB radios and shortwave radios and were listening into this and listening into that and knew that this conspiracy was out there. And it kind of validates Mulder a little bit. He's not just this nutcase in the FBI. It's like, look, we have like a whole bunch of people out here who are following you and who believe you. And yeah, your little fan club, which makes Scully go like, what? Like, who is this? Who is this asshole? So that it did bring back some cool feelings when I watched it because of that. Because I'm pretty sure that when I watched it first run back in the day, I probably felt real like, oh my god, look, it's like they only didn't name Art Bell in they just didn't name drop him, but they could have. Which, by the way, Art Bell was in an episode of Millennium, another Chris Carter show,
Oh, really?
uh, but only as like his radio voice. Like one of the characters was listening to the radio, and he was the radio voice doing his show. And if you're a fan of Tool, the band Tool, Art Bell was also on one of their albums. They have a whole song where it's just Art Bell saying a whole bunch of crazy paranormal shit. So he was very cool. Not like the Alex Jones type. He was beloved and very cool late night talk show host, and a lot of musicians and stuff like that because they're traveling from show to show. Were big fans of his, so they would show up on his show every once in a while. Now, moving ahead, we have episode 11, Eve, with this
Yeah.
freaky
Yeah.
little girl.
Evil little girls.
Oh my god. What do you think
Yeah.
of Eve?
I liked it a lot, actually, largely because of these two. It's kind of weird, too, because they weren't like child actors, but because they were filming in Vancouver, like they had a really limited selection of identical twins that age, identical twin girls that age. So it was
Mhm.
basically like open casting call for like twin girls, like 8 to 10. And yeah, they lucked into these two who were creepy as fuck.
Yes, and real quick here, the plot is that the Mulder and Scully encounter two girls. Individual fathers were murdered in similar odd circumstances at the same moment, over 3,000 miles apart.
Yeah, they were
This,
exsanguinated.
mhm. This came out, which yeah, we'll talk about that because it has a little bit to do with some cattle mutilation. This came out on December 10th, so this was the X Files' first little break. So Fallen Angel was the last episode before we got our reruns, and then we came back with Eve to get us close to the closing of the first half of the season, which usually happens at the end of December. So, 10 million viewers, written by Kenneth Biller and Chris Brancato, directed by Fred Gerber, and it's got an 8.3 rating. So a lot of people really enjoyed this episode. And what do you like about it? Because I didn't rank it that high. It's got some nice stuff in it, but it wasn't one of my favorites.
Yeah, I thought the actresses, not just these two, but actually the chick that plays Kendrick, the adult version of them, I thought she was pretty good too because she played two different characters, and she was really good in both of them. Like as you said, the premise starts off with Mulder and Scully investigating these two guys who've been killed in identical circumstances, 3,000 miles apart. The circumstances being that they've had all the blood drained from their body. But in the course of investigating this, they find out that the daughters of these guys look exactly the same, which leads to our man Deep Throat turns up in this one again, turns them on to a top secret government project designed to build super soldiers, but they all went crazy. And eventually we find out that the episode is called Eve because the men were called Adams and the girls were called Eves. And most of the Eves wound up institutionalized, but one escaped. And she wound up working at this fertility clinic where she was trying to perfect on the experiment that caused all the original subjects to go crazy by performing in vitro fertilization, which is girls come from. But of course, improving on it didn't work. They're still crazy ass little bitches.
Yeah, I put that down with as far as a note is that Kendrick is genuinely freaky, really great
Yeah.
actress. Yes, one of the first genuine, well, other than Tombs, of course, but one of the first genuinely freaky characters in the first season where you're just like, wow, this bitch is dangerous, and even more
Yeah.
than
Well, she's got her Eve 6 personality, which is the one that is in the mental institution. And then
Mhm.
you got Eve 7, who is here, who is also really imbalanced, but you get the impression she's a little more stable. She's trying to right the wrongs of the past and put these girls on a separate path that than the others went down, and trying to give them a normal life. But of course, as we see here in this clip, they're like, fuck you, bitch.
Yes,
And
yes.
they're sneaky little bitches, too.
They're super evil. Yeah, they try to poison Mulder and Scully at the
Yeah.
end and run off. That's the only thing that for me was uh, the the negative of the episode is that the motivations weren't completely clear as far as like what these girls wanted to do. I guess they just wanted to just be
I think they
crazy
just
little girls.
I think they
I
just
don't
wanted
know.
to be together. They didn't want to be under adult supervision. Because part of the aspect of this program is that they were supposed to have heightened intelligence, and they probably just saw themselves above adult supervision.
Yeah, which for me, I mean, it's interesting, but like what exactly caused them to all of a sudden like now is when we're gonna do this, and did we figure out why it is that their fathers were killed in that way? Because they do kind of make a connection to cattle mutilation, and it's cool that they used actual pictures of cattle mutilation because I used to follow a lot of news
I
on that
think
with Linda
I
Moulton
think
Howe.
Mulder just brings it up. It doesn't relate to the story. That's just one of Mulder's early theories.
Okay, yes, but the Den of Geeks said that you can't go wrong when it comes to twins and heart and the girls
Yeah,
acting being called suitably menacing.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and it's funny because I just watched what's that movie, The Shining, and you
Oh,
get
right.
those freaky little twins in the hallway, and I prefer these twins here because they were actually out there. It's kind of like
And they
shows you
were
from the
alive.
they were alive
Yeah.
and just plotting to kill you. But yeah, I just felt that in the end it didn't really go anywhere with these little girls. And what happened to them at the end?
Uh, at the end, I believe they wind up in the institution with
Oh yeah, with
another
Lefty.
Eve, Eve 8. It ends with when Eve 8 asked them how she knew they would come for her. They both respond at the same time. We just knew. Um, so
Yeah,
they did that. They said that same line when they asked them how they were aware of each other. We just knew.
yeah. So I gave it a thumbs up. I gave it a 2.5, but maybe you kind of convinced me to maybe pull it up to a 3. The project that Deep Throat is talking about is the Light Field Project, by the way, this idea of this genetic manipulation. And again, a theme that runs throughout the X Files is the idea of creating the perfect soldier, which is a theme that runs,
Eugenics.
yeah. And it's a theme that runs through a lot of horror sci-fi in general, or just sci-fi. I mean, even with Alien, why do
Yeah.
they keep going back to try to get these aliens? They want to create the super soldiers, or what's or even in Star Trek they have that because they have the whole eugenics war. Khan was a benefactor of eugenics in trying to create this perfect human with some genetic uh, fiddling. So this is what this episode centers on, and it's all right. It takes place in Connecticut at the start, and then they head out to California after, also known as Canada.
Yes.
But yeah, this is like the darkest California you've ever seen, the moodiest California you've ever seen. It's California via Vancouver. But yes, I big ups to Kendrick though. And it says here that while Eve Seven is depicted as the villain for the majority of the episode, acting on her innate violent nature, she is actually the only benevolent Eve and was attempting to stop and cure the Eve's homicidal tendencies. So it's
Exactly.
a bunch of homicidal little girls uh, and their mom.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to close out, guys, with the final episode of the evening. Thank you all for listening. And it is called Fire.
Ah, we had ice. We gotta have fire.
Exactly. And it premiered on December 17th, 1993, 11 million viewers, written by Chris Carter and directed by Larry Shaw. It's got a 7.5 rating. And Mulder most, yeah, this is, now that I'm reading the synopsis, I remember why they don't like this episode. Mulder must overcome his phobia of fire to catch a mutant killer with pyrokinetic capabilities. Um, well, I'll tell you, there's a few things in this episode that I didn't like. I gave it 2 stars. Uh, one, the whole English aspect of it, with their shitty English accents, they weren't even trying to make these accents seem reasonably good. I imagine it's like what's his name, Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins is just like the worst possible English accent you could ever have. And we have this girl Phoebe Green, who is Mulder's longtime. Well,
This
I
was
mean,
his
what did she
college
do? She worked with
girlfriend. No,
their
she was
college.
his girlfriend in university because Mulder went to
Yes,
Oxford.
we forgot that Mulder studied at Oxford. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention something last week that they mentioned in the pilot, and they don't bring up that much throughout the series, but I thought was interesting is that Mulder is actually a psychologist. Like he's a certified
Yeah.
psychologist. Yeah. Yes. So yes, Phoebe, she was back from his Oxford days more than 10 years ago, but she definitely had a thing for him, and she comes back, and you can
No,
see that.
no, they were involved, and he broke his heart. The implication is that she cheated on him and dumped him.
Yeah, but she's kind of into him now, Though having
Ah,
broken his heart then, she
she's
kisses him
come.
harder now as Scully
Yeah,
looks away in annoyance.
yeah, but
She's
she's
the
using him.
tyrant.
Yes, exactly. She's that. There's definitely a double entendre there. The
Mm-hmm.
movie is about a pyrokinetic, but she's the flame.
Mm-hmm. So, um, but they kind of rekindle whatever the hell they had, or at least she tries to. You can't tell if she's really into him or she's just kind of doing this to get him to help her on this case. But in either case, this is sprinklings of Scully's jealousy, where you really get a
Yes,
sense
yeah,
that Scully doesn't want to fall for Mulder, but
yes,
she she likes him, and he's just kind of
yes.
aloof.
She doesn't like seeing another woman get Mulder's attention. That's for sure.
Uh-huh, definitely. And there is a scene, not in this episode. I don't know if it was from the episodes we reviewed last week or the ones coming up where I think doesn't she tell oh it was that episode where she went out with the date with that real boring guy. But I think
Yes,
that
yeah,
she mentioned I think her friend was like, "Oh, you need to go out. What about that FBI agent? Didn't you say he was cute?" So you get these lines thrown in every once in a while that show that Scully, it's not completely platonic on her side as far as some of her what she might feel for Mulder. She just doesn't want to cross that line, and Mulder also is just really aloof, and uh, he doesn't show much interest in her outside of professionally, but he's a hot motherfucker.
he's a
Why wouldn't
damn
you?
good-looking man.
Yeah. So I thought she was annoying though. This Phoebe character, she's annoying, but it helps to prove why Scully and Mulder as a duo work. They are
Right.
just in a way she becomes the reason why we prefer Mulder and Scully as a duo and not this bitch. And yes, so this guy's motivation is he's just a serial killer, right? Does he have any motivation beyond that, Pete? I don't recall.
He's a stalker. He stalks women.
Yeah, but there was this weird scene
Yeah,
where
where
he
he
was
burns the
with
bar to the ground for no reason.
well that yeah that and then there was this thing with the kids that seemed like again it's Chris Carter episode, so he just kind of goes all over the place sometimes. Like he introduces
Yeah,
stuff, but he doesn't finish it. Because there was a scene with the two little boys
yeah,
where they're outside and it kind of had this pedophilia angle going with it, where he's like, "Hey, can I show you guys something?" And can you keep it a secret? And then he offers them a
right.
cigarette, and then the one little boy's like, "No, I shouldn't." I was like, "Where's he going with this?" And then it just kind of drops, that angle. So again, it's another Chris Carter episode that has a lot of interesting ideas, but he doesn't consolidate on any of them. Like even the whole relationship between Phoebe and or Phoebe, however you pronounce that, and
Yeah,
and Mulder. You think it's going somewhere, but then it doesn't, and Scully's kind of in the background. And another episode that seems like just Carter has a disdain for Gillian Anderson. Like, I don't know. I get this sense sometimes when I watch some of these episodes written by Chris Carter that he never writes Scully very well. And I know that when Gillian Anderson left now for good, season 11, some of it was that she explained that she just wasn't very happy with how they were writing her character, how she kept having to end up in the hospital, how there's this whole pregnancy, this baby, this thing. Like, she doesn't have as much agency sometimes as Mulder does when it
right.
comes to Chris Carter writing for her. I think the other, like when you get a Wong episode or another, one of the other recurring writers, they write her really well, and she's very strong and very sometimes the savior of the episode. But I get a sense sometimes when it's like Chris Carter episode, he just doesn't know how to write women very well, and he definitely doesn't have a good sense of how to write Scully. And I don't know. This is just one of the episodes that for me felt like that. But hey, it says here the character Phoebe Green was considered as a recurring role,
Yeah,
but this episode ended up being her only appearance. Chris Carter explained the character's origin, saying, "I thought it was interesting to show a little bit of Mulder's history by bringing, girlfriend back. I've always wanted to do a Scotland Yard detective who was a woman. I also thought it was an interesting chance to use Amanda Pays and make a villainess of her." Um, Executive producer Robert Goodwin felt the episode was a hard one. Amy kind of any kind of fire stunt is a major undertaking because it involves so many overlapping things. Yeah, a lot of fire stunts
Yes.
here, but the general consensus is that it's a popular episode. Carter says that it's a very popular episode, and I'm just somewhat happy with the way it turned out. Having written it and imagined it in certain ways, I think it could have been a lot better. Although I thought it was generally well directed, the show felt very wide to me, very loose and lacking some things. A retrospective of the first season rated the episode B, praising Mark Shepard's sizzling performance, and he was really good in it, though finding that the annoying character Phoebe Green was a detriment to the episode who kept any real sparks from flying. And I agree. I like Mark Shepard. He was really good as the villain, very charismatic. But outside of what Pete said, he was just kind of like the stalker. But like, what was his real motivation? Like, what did he really like? He just liked to burn things. Like,
Well,
it
because he
didn't have.
could.
Oh, yeah. It's like I think that's the same issue I had with Eve. It's like they just did it because they could, but uh, for a 40-minute mini movie, I think you have to have kind of stronger motivations. It's like Toombs, we know exactly why he's doing what he's doing. Um, or, some of the later villains that we're going to get into, you know exactly why it is that they're doing what they're doing, like Beyond the Sea. We know why he's messing with Scully's mind. He just wants to save himself from getting going to the electric chair, even though maybe he does have some power. The villains that work better for me have very clear motivations, and they're not just evil just for the sake of being evil.
Right.
I mean, it can work, but usually only if you have something like Killer Croc, something like that from Batman, which is, this is an insane guy,
Right.
uh, or Venom or something. Okay, they're like monsters, they're aliens. So yeah, then it does work. Like, well, I'm just gonna eat you because I can. But if you have a character that comes off as somewhat intelligent, like this guy
I didn't think
from.
he came off as that intelligent, though.
No, but you know what I'm saying, Pete? Like, not genius level, but like he can put two and two together and he can make a decision at the start of the day about what he wants to do that day to
Right.
just, he's not mentally retarded. Like, so what is his motivation? Like, why does he want to burn things? I mean, it can be something as simple as like he had some childhood trauma or something. Like, but
No, it's
it's like,
because he has the ability to create fire. I mean,
I know, but come
what are
on.
you supposed to do with that if you don't burn things?
I don't know. I guess, yeah. I mean, you're right in that sense. It's like if I just woke up tomorrow and I could burn shit, I guess I would just burn shit. But at some point, I would be like, you know what? I'm gonna use my power either for good or for bad. Probably bad, and I'm
Yeah.
just gonna like burn my enemies or something, or burn people that didn't pay me that $1,000 they owe me or something. Like at some point, I would wake up and be like, "Yo, I got a pretty powerful mutant power here. I can survive fire, and I can make fire. Let me do something with it." And I would have a motivation to either be a protagonist or antagonist in my own story. He was just burning shit. Like, was there like a particular type of person he was into?
No, he was just stalking women. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
but the first guy he
he
kills. That's why I got
letters.
confused. Because if you watch the teaser, it seems like, and that's what I thought it was at the beginning,
Yeah.
that the whole motivation was, okay, kill the rich type thing, because the first guy that he kills is this old guy, this old
Right.
rich dude. So I was like, okay, maybe that's his motivation. He's this guy that, he's just a day laborer, and he just has this thing against all these rich folks doing this, that, and the third, and he's just gonna kill them just for fun. But then Carter doesn't really build on that because then like it's like what you said. Like when he's at the hotel, who's he trying to burn at the hotel? Because I know the kids are up there on the level of the hotel where he starts burning. So is he trying to burn the kids and kill the kids at the end?
No, I think he's trying to kill the family, except
No, it's definitely not except the kids because the kids are up there.
no, except for the chick. I said, the wife.
Except oh,
He's
except for the
followed her all
wife.
the way from England. Yeah,
Oh, so maybe he wants to bone the wife and just get rid of the whole family so he can bone the
exactly.
wife.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's a great plan.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's it. Like this guy's not really that intelligent. He was probably my least favorite thing about the episode because he compromises himself so badly, and he turns out to be pretty easy to find. Like walks into a bar, starts lighting cigarettes with his fingers, burns the bar down for no apparent reason, doesn't bother to cover his tracks, shows off to the kids. Like the guy's not really working all that hard to at the art of subtlety.
I agree. Here, yeah, so the Marston family returns from England. Lee Ively is held in a medical facility as he awaits trial, healing at an alarming rate. The episode's final scene shows him asking a nurse for a cigarette. Um, yeah, he was dumb, but it's like he was written. It didn't seem like he was dumb because the character was stupid. It's just that he wasn't written well. So he was
Right.
not written well, which makes him seem dumb. But he wasn't like a dumb character. And like I said, I enjoyed the actor. Like I thought the actor did the best he could with what he had. I just wish that the episode could have been written a little bit better to give him uh, better plot to work with. And then the whole subplot with fucking Mulder overcoming his fear of fire was so stupid. And I don't know, were they trying to do like Indiana Jones, I'm afraid of snakes? Like they had to put some I don't know what was going on with Chris Carter with this episode. I give it 2 stars. Not my favorite. So out of this little chunk of episodes here, episodes 7 through 12, I'm my skip and watch list is definitely. I mean, it's not a horrible episode, but I'd say skip fire, skip space, skip, um, and skip that first one. Ghost of the Machine. I don't think you're missing much if you skip those. But I definitely go with Ice. Ice is the best one out of these. Fallen Angel
Yes.
and Eve, I think, are watches of these. With Eve being closer on to the skip side of things for me. And what about you?
Yeah, the watches. I would say I would have to go with Ice, Fallen Angel, and Eve. Although I would have to say that Ghost in the Machine and Fallen Angel are on about the same level for me in terms of overall quality. It's just that Fallen Angel is so much more important to the overall show. That's why I'd say watch, not so much because it's substantially better than a lot of the other episodes, just
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more important. So yeah, Ice, Fallen Angel, and
Cool. So that's it, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us for this hour. Or, well, hour and a little bit. Well, an hour and 23. Okay, but anyway. Uh, it's always a good time. Next week, we will be back. Well, we'll be back on Monday. Unless I have to go to Campinas again. But I should not have to. But we'll be back on Monday talking films, talking what we've watched. Thank you, those that have watched that podcast, if anybody's migrating from one and the other. And then we'll talk 6 more episodes. We will be talking Beyond the Sea and Genderbender and Lazarus and Young at Heart, among others. And EBE, I believe, is going to fall into next
Yes,
week.
EBE,
So,
another important episode.
yeah, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and one more, which is Miracle Man. So we're going to be doing
Yes.
episodes 13 to 18 next week. And it's incredible how quickly I'm getting through these seasons, man. Because once it starts
Oh, wow.
rolling, it's yeah, I'm already on episode 18 or something of season 2. Like I'm
Holy
moving along.
crap. Wow.
Yeah, well, you know what it is, Pete? It's like it's incredible how much they pack into like 45 minutes. And it goes fast because nowadays like when people say it's an hour show, it really is an hour show.
Yeah.
And back in the day, we call them hour long, but really they're not
Yeah.
because there's a whole bunch of commercials. So you're getting maybe 42 minutes of content. And so they go by really quick, like 42 minutes. That's just a tad bit longer than some Cobra Kai episodes, and you go through Cobra Kai real
Right.
quick. It's like 30 minutes. So it's the same here. It's like I'm just flying through these episodes because if
Uh,
you go ahead.
I'm on episode 8 of season 2.
Oh, season 2 gets really good. Yeah, actually, I'm on episode 12.
Okay. I'm not that
With
far
Terry. No, sorry, episode 13, which is what I watched yesterday, which is a little bit of an homage to Psycho. Really good episode. And I think tonight I'm going to watch the one with the high school where all the teachers are like witches and they're sacrificing kids,
Oh,
which is a
yeah,
really
yeah.
that's a good one. So
Yeah.
I'm going to probably watch that after we're finished here. Because that's a really
Nice.
good episode. But anyhow, guys, much love and peace to all of you. And
All right.
until
Cheers.
next time.
The
Until
truth
next
is out
time.
there.
Yes, it is.